about having your own show is I can ask the hard questions.
Uh-oh.
Here we go.
He didn't let us.
It's our point to Lori. Women bring something different to the tech space. Vida Williams talked about it the other day. What's it like when you're in a room and before you may have had to, not may, people want to check the credentials. People want to know the street cred that you have, and you gotta let people know. What do women bring to the tech space that men don't? Now they're okay. Now you were not going to sit here and say, "Oh, women bring something different." What do you think it is?
Well, I think there's a stereotype, and I actually had a friend during an interview who, when she was doing a cybersecurity interview, and the hiring manager said, "We would love to have you because we need some more soft skills on the team," and that's this kind of
Okay, here we go. Boom.
not to get the job. So I think while there is some truth to that women can bring that emotion, but so can men. That's not an exclusively women in tech, women in cyber trait. You get a lot of that assumption. So when you're hired, maybe it is to be more on the project manager side or more on the pretty side of things, even if you have that technical expertise. But also those, especially being a parent or just having children around you and you have that like maternal instinct and you really can go into power mode and get things done and say, okay, we need to do this, this, and this, and not get so overwhelmed in the face of a crisis. Because if you are having a cyber attack or even just, a system is down, you need to be able to think clearly and make sure you're following all the protocol to get yourself up and running and make sure you're not breaking any rules or any data protection information. So yes, that's really important. And I think that women do a fantastic job of that.
All right, Patty, that same question. When you've walked into many rooms, bunch of men sitting around that big table. You're looking, okay, who's the lady over there? And suddenly, when people are checking your credentials, What's it feel like when you had to put someone in their place and people knew what time it was? Did it feel good?
With somebody in their place. Well, I would say that it has been rewarding, that I haven't had too many situations where I've walked into the room and been completely snubbed because I was a female. There have been times, and in those times, rather than focus on the negative, I focus on what could I have done different? Could I have communicated differently? Or do I just need to maybe pull a person aside and say, hey, we have to work together. So I might be a different gender, but we both have the same optimal goal, right? And if you make sure when you walk in the room, what's the objective of the meeting? So if it's a room full of men, you're the only woman, what's the objective of the meeting? And it's not really about gender, it's about solving a problem, sometimes solving a problem for the entire company. And that's critical to me. And there have been crises. I was activated critical staff during 9/11 for the Treasury Department. And I will tell you that the bulk of the people who remained behind were women on the crisis team. So sometimes you think you got a good plan of all the people who say, I want to be on the crisis management team. But when the rubber hits the road, who's left in Washington, D.C. protecting the president?
That's terrifying.
I know.
Well, thank you, Patty, for that sobering thought.
Yeah, I want to bring up something because we didn't really get to talk about Patty and her background. And I think it's such an interesting point because Patty weaved her career. She didn't start out in cybersecurity, right? You started out in a very different role that was even more male dominated probably and much scarier. So let's talk about, that's what I mean. So let's talk about, I want you to tell everybody your journey so that people can see that, hey, there's a lot of people out there that might be teachers, they might be cops, there's anything that want to maybe transition. Talk about the weaving, how you started your career and how you moved through it.
So I was the youngest of 5, and little did I know I had been doing risk management since I was born.
That's called big family negotiations.
Yep. And so you do risk management. And I when I turned 19, I said, I have got to blow this place because I lived in Minnesota and it was cold and I wanted to see the world and I really wanted to travel. So why not do it on somebody else's dime? So I joined the Air Force.
We've had that conversation.
So I joined the Air Force.
You live good.
And away
an Army guy, yes.
Yes, we had good chow halls.
Good.
Yep. And so I spent the first 3 years of my career in Japan. I got to travel. It was awesome. then I moved on. And so I've worked for several different federal agencies and lived overseas and got to see wonderful parts of the world. And some not as wonderful, but still so much goodness out there. And then I came back to the States and I really did not know what I wanted to do when I grew up. I'm coming out of diplomatic service. What do you do? I don't know. So I kind of goofed around with technology, got to learn a little bit of Unix programming, kind of because somebody dropped a Unix for Dummies book on my desk. And I went back into the government to the Treasury Department, and then TSA happened. And so I transitioned into TSA, and I just was complaining all the time. Somebody needs to do security. Who's doing security? And in the government, when you complain, you get to do it.
Yeah, that's the way, that's the Uncle works.
Being the youngest of 5, you'd have thought I would have learned that lesson and keep my mouth shut, but I didn't. And so I finally wore the CIO down. I said, I can be that person. And he said, I'm going to take a chance on you. Let's see how you can do. And I think that's the biggest limiting factor that people have, regardless of where you are in your career, is you don't ask. If you don't, people don't just know through osmosis, you want to take that job. Tell somebody you want to take that job. And I think women are worse.
Yeah.
So
Oh, that's for sure.
we're
Absolutely.
like the worst. We just think if we sit there and do a really good job, somebody's going to go, yeah, you're doing a good job. Let's give you this other thing. No,
They don't know that.
you gotta ask for it. So that to me is like a big deal. And I read somewhere that men will look at a job description and they'll go, oh yeah, I can do that one thing. And they'll apply for the
Yeah.
job. Women will
And
look at
shocked
it.
when we don't get it.
And women will go through
I
the
gotta
whole
do
list
it.
and go, oh, there's that one thing at the end. I can't do
No.
that really well. And they won't even apply. So I got to tell you, it doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter what your degree is in. Take a chance. Ask for it.
Yeah.
Because if you don't ask, people aren't going to know.
Really quickly, so in an organization, how do you set the culture so that women will ask? Because like you said, if it says I need 10 of those things, at 3, oh man, I'm good. I'm shocked that I didn't get it. Whereas women are gonna be like checking every box. You know, I wake up, my wife is looking at me in the middle of the night. Hey, you look, what were you thinking about stuff? Women think through things, they're very precise a lot of times. How do you set culture in an organization so that the women will speak up and say, I'd like to take a shot at that opportunity?
That is a great question.
I was going to say that too, Mike.
I got one.
We didn't even.
One of my
questions for you.
I got one good question.
I-
Sorry, Lexi, but you know what time it is. You've been here before.
So, really, the military probably taught me command and control. So
Mhm.
that's a leadership style. You tell people what to do and you lead people and they do things. The trust and inspire model, which is really more, I think, what more women bring to the table. It's more about helping people, leading people to do things versus telling people.